G'day folks, this is Raymond Foster. I hope you're doing great. Last night I happened to have a conversation with some young members of Western Kind, some young males. They high school age folk, okay? So young high school aged males, members of Western Kind, so young white men, adolescents. A group of them, I happened to have a conversation with them about, only briefly. I don't want to try to lecture to them or anything, because they're not going to be that interested, obviously. You want to speak in a way that's relatable to the person you're trying to speak to. So I briefly put across a few notions in regards to economics, corruption within the system, the Antiwhite system, and then as well how I am what you would consider a boss. Alright, I'm a king compared to most folk, and because fundamentally the subject arose, and I was able to speak about this because of my lifestyle. Okay, so because of the way that I live, I was able to speak to the topic of the corruption of the system, the anti-white slave debt tax system that incentivizes people to be enslaved in their own debt, to have them enslave themselves, so they don't need slave masters or, folk going around with whips, whipping you to go to work. You have your own alarm clock and you whip yourself to be a slave. Okay? So I was able to speak about this simply because I was asked about my lifestyle that I choose to live. Now, the individual who asked, he'd made references towards my lifestyle before with less curiosity. And now he was a bit more curious, he asked. So I made the point. I said to him, the two reasons that I live the way that I do. One is I'm a simple man and I enjoy nature. Okay, so that's one of the two reasons. That I'm simple, I enjoy nature. I'm a simple person who likes to just relax and enjoy the sound of birds singing in the trees. It's very pleasant. It's a good way to live your life, I think. It is really nice. I don't need a TV. I don't need a radio. When I have natural scenery, okay? The serenity of the natural world, the tranquility of nature around me, the presence of the Creator in all things. So I'm always at peace, I'm always very happy, living a very simple life. That's one. Number two is I'm a boss, okay? So I'm humble, I'm chill, I'm relaxed. Number two, I'm a warrior, I'm a boss, I'm a fucking king. I'm not a slave, I won't be no one's bitch, and I won't pay taxes, because tax is a form of slave tribute to slave masters. So if you're paying tax, alright, or if you're not living in a way so that you can not pay tax, or you can avoid that system, you're not living in a way to work towards independence of that system, well then you're essentially just a weak little bitch. When the slave masters say, give us your shit, you bow down and you kiss their dick and you give them your shit. That's what paying tax is. Alright? Because I'm a boss, I'm a king, I ain't bending down to kiss some motherfucker's dick. Alright? They can bend down and kiss my feet if they want, but I'm not bending down to kiss theirs. Fuck that. Alright? I'll happily stand there and let them kiss my feet, because I'm fucking king. But I don't fucking kneel down to no cunt. Alright? I don't kneel to anyone except for the Creator. But no one in this universe, cunt, everyone in this universe kneels to me. Pretty straightforward. I didn't go into this much detail because, again, I'm not here to lecture folk. And if you want to make valid points, you want to get points across to people that can actually make the world a better place, you want to use information practically, you know, have some wisdom in the way that you express things. You want to express certain things to the point, to that individual, again, in a manner which is relatable to that individual or the collective that they're a part of, whatever it happens to be. So, I simply just answered his question. I said, one reason, simple, enjoy nature. My other reason, I'm a boss. I'm not a bitch. I don't pay taxes. Okay, that's just a simple way to put that whole concept across of being a king. Alright? I'm not a bitch. I don't pay taxes, man, because that's fucked. It's corrupt as. I don't think anyone should. We should all be able to keep our income and our own property. We shouldn't have the government robbing us. Alright? This was able to allow me to speak to my plans. Okay? Even though I live this way, I live a simple life, I'm also saving. And I'm going to buy my own land. Okay? Now, one of the questions that arose amongst these young fellas was, if you're planning on saving to get your own land, that's all legit and that. Everything else I said, all legit, sweet. I took it on. Not necessarily believing it, but they took it on, okay? They heard what I had to say, which is, that's enough, that's all that's needed. Then it's up to them to think about it for themselves, you know, research for themselves, study here and there, add it up, figure it out for themselves, and see if what Raymond Foster had to say makes sense for them in their life. Alright? So the seeds have been planted. The seeds of the concepts are planted. Then you move on, and then that can allow them to step in certain directions in their life, right? By nurturing those seeds, and if those seeds flourish within their psyche, it can change who a person is, fundamentally. So, I made those 2 points. One of the young lads asks in the conversation, why don't you then, if you're saving to get land, okay, so you're a simple man, they understand that, they know me well enough, they don't know me too well, but they know me well enough to know I'm a simple man that enjoys relaxing in nature. And I'm sure they can believe me, they understand me enough to understand my perspective when I put across that I don't believe in paying tax because it's a form of slavery, etc. I feel that it's corrupt, that no one should be paying that type of thing. Okay? They can understand that principle. Young folk these days, when in the streets, in the primary schools and high schools, when young tough kids intimidate and rob other students for their property, they even refer to it as taxation. They'll tax your stuff. So the young folk in this day and age, and it's not a coincidence that there's slang and it's used in that manner, to the point where even young folk who go out and they staunch, intimidate, and they'll rob other young folk for their property, right? Which is common occurrence. It's happened my whole lifetime. Young kids, bullies taking the lunch money off the other kids, etc. But when they do it, they actually call it tax. They're taxing that lunch money. The same way when the government takes your income, they tax your income. So in the minds of young school kids, it's the same thing. If you go up as a bully and you punch some kid and take his lunch money, or if the government takes part of your income as tax, it's both called taxing. You get taxed of your property, which means you're getting robbed by someone who's staunching you because they got more guns or bigger muscles. And the government's obviously got more guns because they got police and army. So they get to staunch everyone and rob them for their property and take all your shit, so they tax you. Alright? The same as the schoolyard bully, when he robs you for your vape or your cigarettes or your lunch money, etc. You're being taxed. So the young folks, they understand that terminology, right? But then they ask all right, you don't like that, that's fair enough, but you want to save and buy yourself land. Okay. This gets to the heart of the subject here, the conclusion here. They say you want to buy land, okay? Fair enough, you don't want to pay tax, you're a simple man, you like to live a simple life. But if you want to save and buy land, wouldn't it be better, wouldn't you be able to do it faster perhaps, if you just worked your ass off, put in a few years work full time, alright? Work your ass off, then just retire and buy your land. Wouldn't it be easier to do it that way than the way that you're doing now, living essentially on scraps, you know, welfare from the government, living on handouts, welfare, and then saving welfare, living such a simple life that I can live comfortably, more comfortable than the average person in the country, on the lowest income in the country, and I can save more than the average person with the highest income in the country, and I'll be one of the richest men in the country within only a couple of years, and I don't even have to work. They're curious, they ask, because obviously not many folk understand how this works. That's why I want to teach people how economics works, how you can actually be rich, how to actually be rich and successful in this current world, because the old method of going to work, that's not how you do it anymore. And so they ask me, and they say, well, why don't you just work? Wouldn't it be faster? Wouldn't it be easier? And the answer is no. They didn't quite comprehend, but I just put it across, again, in very simple terms. I didn't go into the details that I'm going into here. But the answer is no. If I worked full-time, if I had a full-time job and I worked full-time, I'd be poorer than I am now. And I wouldn't be able to save as much money as fast. And that's exactly why, this is just the details I said to him. I said, no, it doesn't work, guys. It used to work, but our economy is that fucked. And I'm not going to go into an hour-long lecture and teach you about how the economy works and everything. Unless you want to ask me another day or whatever, we can go over that, fair enough. But it's such a long topic, we'd be here talking for hours for you to understand why I'm right, why the economy is fucked, alright? Our economy is fucked. That's why when our parents were young, they could buy houses for 20 grand, but now that same house is hundreds of thousands to $1 million. A $20,000 house is now $1 million. Okay, fellas? Okay, boys? So our economy is that fucked now that no, I can't just go to work and save and make more money. I'm actually making more money now, I'm saving more now than the average worker. Me being on welfare and understanding how to be intellectual, alright, understanding my situation, budgeting for the future, okay, using my wisdom to, withholding satisfaction and gratitude for future gain and, putting things off, right, having some self-control, some wisdom, alright, living the way that I do, fellas, I'm actually able to, and I will be able to, okay, and think about it, I don't have to work, I don't have to do anything, I'm not on anyone else's time, I do what I want, when I want, alright? I am an actual free citizen, I'm one of the only free citizens in the whole country. Most other people aren't free because they're enslaved to work. They're worker slaves. So I'm one of the only free people in Australia, alright? I don't have to do anything, I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to have more savings, I'm going to own multiple properties. I'm going to own multiple properties of land, alright, parcels of land. I'm going to have more money saved up in a couple of years of being on welfare. Alright, a couple of years on Centrelink, on welfare, government handouts. I'm going to have more money saved than any worker who's worked their whole life away full time. Maybe, okay, not every and any. There's some smart workers out there that know how to save. and they make a lot of sacrifices. I'll still end up being richer in the long run, but they're better off than the average worker. But they'll never be as well off as me. Because I've got the best situation you can have. I'm literally one of the only free citizens in the whole country. I'm a boss of bosses. I'm a king of kings. Nobody's as alpha. Nobody's as Chad as Raymond Foster. Alright? At least in Queensland and Australia, maybe there's a few men like myself around the world. A couple of us around the world. But we're that rare, we're that boss. We're extremely rare, alright? But things are going to change because we're leading the way. That's what I'm saying. I've got whole groups of youth in high school who are scratching their heads saying, why don't you just go work full time? And I'm explaining to them why, if I don't work, alright, I just stay on welfare, I'm going to be richer and have more savings than the average Australian worker who's worked their entire life away. So men like myself are extremely rare because you have to think for yourself. You have to be, classified as a genius to be a man like myself, a leader, all right, a trendsetter, avant-garde, all right. I don't follow the crowd. The crowd follows me. Do you understand? There's certain types of people in the world. There's the crowd, all right. The crowd who follows leaders, and there's the leaders who the crowd follows. If you're like everyone else and you just do what everyone else does, you go to work like everyone else, you drive your car like everyone else does, because that's what everyone else, you wear the same clothes that everyone else wears, you're a follower, you're a part of the crowd, you follow the trends. But I am a trend setter. I make the culture. I make the trends. The things that I do and think and make and decide are what whole civilizations of people will copy and do for hundreds and thousands of years' time to come. And the stuff that you do now in your life were copied trends from men like me in the past who developed and made everything that you do. Alright? That's how the world works. There's a handful of rare men like myself. We make everything. We produce all the culture. We have all the ideas. We put everything into motion. We create whole new systems, new economic processes, new political systems, etc. And we spread them across. We educate. People might laugh. They don't take it too seriously. So we just do it ourselves. We put it to practice. We prove that it works, that it's better than the old systems. Then the youth start to listen and they see, and oh, actually it is better. The other old people who won't listen, they're just too dumb. But we can clearly see that these new methods are far better. So the youth will take it on, the new generations take it on. And then in 100 years' time, the trends and the way that people live, the way they dress, will be in reflection of men like me. Not in reflection of you, followers, the crowd. It will be in reflection of the leaders, the trendsetters, like myself. So in time, in the future, there will be millions of people who are rich, own their own land, never work a day in their life. But they're smart. And they will dominate the planet. My tribe, those who will follow my direction and consider me a king or a leader, will dominate the planet. And the rest, well, you all be irrelevant. You're all going to be forgotten in time. You're not going to exist. Your descendants aren't going to have healthy children who are going to have healthy children who are going to have healthy children who are going to pass on your traditions and the trends that you create, like my trends that I'm creating now, which are going to be healthier and more powerful. So then in 1,000 years' time, everything about you and your lifestyle will be extinct. And in 1,000 years' time, there'll be entire civilizations that look and copy and live like me. Because it works. And your way, your old ways, it doesn't work anymore. It's outdated. Men like me are the way of the future. Again, and those who are willing and have the wisdom to listen and follow, They will survive, continue on, pass on their genetics, have healthy children, who will have healthy children, who will build tribes and communities, who will protect themselves and pass on this wisdom for generations, thousands of years to come. And those who don't want to listen to men like myself, well, they'll get drunk, become alcoholic, druggos, commit suicide, and their children will follow in their footsteps, or their children will follow in my footsteps and become a part of my tribe. And that's just the way it's going to be. So that's your choice. You either follow wise men like myself, or your children will anyway. They'll abandon you and join my tribe and copy me and follow me and men like myself, because we're more successful. Alright? You can be a failure, junkie, loser, and your children will obviously follow men like me over you. Fair enough. So either way, all of the wise, healthy individuals of my race, of my tribe, will emulate and copy my ways as a leader of my tribe. And those who don't, they'll go extinct. So I'm a trendsetter, setting the way for my people for the future. So I am one of the first living in this way. I will be one of the richest men in Australia. I don't even have to work. So these boys were curious. They said, but why? If you just go to work and save and work hard now, wouldn't you make more money? Wouldn't you be able to save faster? There is a possibility that that is the case, but ultimately, taking into consideration the various nexus points or axioms, various connections on the web, right? The different various linking points of the net of this system, of this complex operative phenomena, all right? You can say, yes, it's a possibility. Yeah, maybe somebody could work their ass off and they could save. Small, slim chance, possibly. But you definitely have a higher chance, okay? You're better off if you don't work. You can save more money more easily if you actually are wise about your spending, your expenses, etc., and you don't commit to being a tax slave, a debt slave. Fundamentally, the average person who makes more money, they spend more money. Okay? So that's why, even after working an entire lifetime, a high-paying job, the average person who works their entire life, they have less savings than what I'm going to have not working. And again, 20 years ago would be a different story because, or not 20, say 50, 60 years ago and before that. All right, 60 years or longer, when we had a gold standard, a healthy economy, it would have made sense. I would be working and saving, and I still would be one of the richest men in the country. But because the current economy, the way the system works now, a 20 grand house is now $1 million, all right? Because they've fucked our economy and they want us to be worker debt slaves. That means in this current day and age right now, we are better off, and I'm setting that trend. I'm better off not working. I will have more money saved. I will own more property than the average person who is working full time. Okay? Again, maybe if the economy is corrected and fixed, working will be practical again. But as of now, it's not. So I found that very interesting that this was brought up in conversation yesterday afternoon with some young blokes. And I hope that they can start to think about these things and not just take on the bullshit and just accept what the teachers at the school say, what the politicians say. Oh, just go to work and just pay your taxes and be a slave. All right? At least, if they want to do that, fair enough, but at least think outside the box a little bit and think about their expenses, budgeting, saving for the future, and learning about how the economy works in order to have some form of safety net. And then as well, always being conscious of trying to live a more simple life, trying to be independent and as off-grid of the system as you possibly can be, so that you're not reliant on the economy, the current state of the economy, for a healthy or a comfortable life. Okay? if you are so used to having this thing or the fuel, etc., if you can't have that, then you're going to suffer, your children are going to suffer, because that's the lifestyle you're used to. But if you can put into practice certain things, like say you get some electric scooters, or you get your own chickens, so you harvest your own eggs and stuff, maybe get a cow or some sheep if you have enough land, and start collecting your own milk, grow your own veggies. Little things like this that can give you independence and power as a community, an individual, or a family, so that you can actually remain comfortable and fend for yourself and live an enjoyable life regardless of the state of the economy or the world around yourself. You shouldn't be 100% reliant on the government to look after you, because a lot of the time the government's dumb as fuck and they ruin shit. So it's up to us as individuals to be smart and to set our lives in order and to actually plan ahead. Alright, again, even to the point where we have to say, even if the government reckons it's going to help us out and sort our life out and make sure the country is safe and we're fed. No, fuck that off. The government, yeah, right, you can help us out where you want, but we're still going to make sure we grow our own food. We're going to look after ourselves, because at the end of the day, the government is pretty dumb. Alright, we're smarter than the government. We can do better than the government. We can have a much more comfortable life if we do our own thing the way we want to do it, and tell the government to get out of our life. That's enough for today, folks. Hope you enjoyed that topic, that subject. To summarize, the conclusion is, and the question that was asked, if you're planning to save money because you want to buy land, wouldn't it be better or faster just to pump out a couple of years of work? Just work a couple of years and then save? No. Again, there's many reasons for that. More income, higher expenses, etc. Not only this, higher taxes, and a lot of the time to work you need to drive to and from a workplace. That means you've got to pay fuel. That means you've got to use more of your own energy as well. So you've got to buy more food to feed yourself, more fuel for your body. Otherwise you're not going to have the energy to keep up with the work, etc, etc, etc. That means you haven't got time to do things for yourself, so you have to pay other people to do things for you that you could have just done in your spare time. But you can't, because you've got to work and then get home, eat a nice feed, and then go to sleep to have the energy to go back to work. So you see, ultimately, you're actually better off. You can save more money if you don't work. And again, that's just because of the current economy. If we had a healthy economy, obviously working would be efficient and it would make sense. So, take it easy. Catch us next time.